Hello everyone, this is General History, and this is going to be part 7 of our Panzer Corps 2 playthrough. We just broke out of Sedan, and now we're going to be continuing along the English, or the French rather, Channel coast.
I know it's been less than a week since your brilliant breakthrough at Sedan, but there's no time for rest, Herr General. The iron is hot. The time to strike is now. From your new base of operation, I need you to advance all the way to the English Channel, completely cutting off all Allied troops in Belgium. Along the way, there are a host of objectives we need to secure. Crossing the Somme River and Escaut River at Cambrai will have to be accomplished quickly. And be sure to secure them well, should a French counterattack try and retake them. After that, Arras deserves some special attention. Recon from Romulus' 7th Division reported a substantial garrison of British forces here, including heavy armor. So, I would definitely prepare for their contingency. Finally, 2 more locations, here and here, will need to be secured to fully protect the flanks of our advance and permanently cut the Allied lines in half. I know it's quite the task ahead of you, but I have every confidence in your abilities.
Alright, so that's the briefing. As you can see, the day is May 16th, so this is going to start shortly after the first of the many delay orders or halt orders that the German army would receive as they move forward into France. This unit cannot be ignored. Interesting. That'd be good for a defending unit. So maybe my infantry. So yeah, so this is supposed to take place in right after the first of the halt orders. Now, the first halt order basically came right after the breakthrough of Sedan, and the German army began to extend quickly into France, so quickly that the German high command basically got cold feet, and so ordered a halt order because they believed that they were actually walking into a trap. They couldn't believe that how quickly units were starting to break out of France along that the Sedan corridor. And like I said, they believed that it was far too easy and that they must be walking into a trap. And it would be the first of actually many halt orders that the German army would receive in the coming days. It's one of those we're actually going to talk about because in a very interesting what-if scenario, I'm all about what-if scenarios. I think they make learning about history far more interesting. But so we'll talk about that later. But so first we're gonna rebuild our army. As you see, I already went through. Now I didn't choose any bridge pioneers because I'm looking at the map, or I didn't reinforce my bridge pioneers because I'm looking at the map. Although there's a lot of river crossings, there is this gap right here that I think I can pull my armor and troops through and sort of surround Cambrai and Peronne. So this would have been the path, I believe the path that the 7th Army, 7th Panzer actually would have taken. So that was under Rommel. Guderian would have swung south with his 1st, 2nd, and 10th Panzer. I guess more of this route around the Means and then Abbeville before heading north to Boulogne and Calais and then what would hopefully eventually become Dunkirk, but again we'll talk about that. So I don't think I'm going to need my bridge pioneers this mission because the starting force I can put 4 right here and I feel like I can just drive these guys through this open gap. Now there might be enemy forces there, I don't know, but I feel like I can. So I'm going to go ahead and put them away. I feel like after that last mission I need a bigger air force. So I think I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get another 109. Why can't I get another Ju-88? It's weird. Why can't I? Oh, not Ju-88. Oh wait, no, I don't have enough 4 slots. I see. I actually haven't bought the Messerschmitt. I feel like that's the more important one, but I can also, like I said, I want to get more Air Force. So I'm going to go ahead and get a 110 as well. And that's going to be what I add to my forces. I think I got enough tanks. And I believe I have enough infantry. I don't have a transportation slot for my Fallschirmjäger, so I think what I might do is I might make them another infantry unit. The Wehrmacht infantry, that is. And yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go with. I think that should give me plenty. So I'll put Panzer 3 on each flank, Panzers in the middle. Pioneer unit in the south and in the north. Actually, I'll put one here. Put Grenadiers in the north. And Wehrmacht. And the 2 lighter artillery pieces here in the middle. Okay. And now my Air Force, I'll put all 3 fighters here in the middle. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and put everybody forward at this base. There. That looks good. Alright, so let's go ahead and start this. So I have 3 avenues of assault. I think I'm actually going to swing these 4 units south and go along this roadway here. Take these southern towns and then head north. These 4 units, I'll sort of head into this gap and take these towns. And then this northern smaller group, I'll head towards Cambrai. So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and... Ooh. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so at least I know they're there now. I'm going to go ahead and swarm these guys. I almost took them down. I don't know if they have any other air force in the area though. Go ahead and bomb that town. Use my 110 to attack that tank. And go ahead and hit that artillery piece. Alright. Go ahead and start moving these gentlemen south. Armor in the open. Good enough. It's an old World War I tank. The Renault 17. He's retreating. Don't know what else they have for Air Force, so I don't want to go too crazy moving my forces forward. Especially getting them out of the wagons, I don't want to expose them. Alright, we'll hit the infantry in the open. Get behind them. Really should upgrade these guys to more than wagons. I should have done that. I had plenty of prestige, but I'm saving that for later in the game because I'm still worried about that late game unit draw. Alright, so that's interesting for turn 1. I did exactly what I wanted, sending these forces right to the middle. Got these guys going south, and of course the assault in the north. 1-1 here in the south. So those are those are fighters as well. Oh, we shot down that fighter. Alright, so let's go ahead and swarm this guy, just like the other one. Three to 2, 4 to 1, and we shot him down. There we go. ahead and start getting into that town there. Actually, I don't want to advance too far. I'm worried about what they might have in reserve behind Eris. Oh wait, what am I gonna do? At least attack that guy first. Yeah, we got him to surrender. I'm gonna swing all my armor to the south here. And I'll start moving my artillery into position. I think that, I don't know if that was it for their Air Force. I can't imagine that that's it. Okay, no, they do have something all the way back there. Probably just doesn't have the range yet, although it's probably in range if I move him forward. I really don't want to get attacked in my wagon, so. That's 4-2. Okay, we'll send the Stuka in. Should have hit him with artillery first. He just don't want to die. I don't want to cross the river yet. I'll use that 109 to nail him. And we'll go ahead and bomb for Rome this time. Got enough artillery heading towards Cambrai. These guys will flank south next turn, assuming they don't counter. And these guys will move forward. Alright, so yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so you have some units up in the north. A Dingo. Some British units are starting to move in. I don't know why they would exit this. I don't know, that's weird. Attacking my infantry in the open, that wasn't very good odds for me. Ooh, oh no. God, my infantry in the open sucks. But their infantry in the open sucks against tanks, so. Go ahead and get them out of there. It's gonna be hard to cross, but we gotta try. Go ahead and bomb Cambrai. Soften them up. Not too worried about the Dingo. I'm gonna keep softening up this infantry. Got them to surrender. Move forward with this armor unit. He can offer supporting artillery fire. And I think that's gonna be it for up north. Go ahead and hit these units in the open. We'll go ahead and bring these guys up. They took a lot of heat in those last engagements. Actually, Stuka's a little more susceptible than the bomber is. Alright. Like I said, I'm not sure why they moved out of the entrenchments, but we'll make them pay for that mistake. Should take them out. Alright. We'll go ahead and move them in just in case. I doubt there's a unit down here, but oh well. They might counter. Actually, yeah, they might counter across, so I'm actually going to move these guys back into the town. Alright. So we have a means Abbeville's due to take. We actually haven't taken any of the objectives, but we're threatening. And as long as we don't get a big push, I believe we should be okay. Not sure why they'd move on a river hex. I guess just to encircle my tank. I guess. Move him forward. Go ahead and reinforce these guys so they can move on Piron. Guess I can move my fighters against them. Go ahead and scout ahead. Oh, that's an anti-aircraft gun. Sort of gave me being able to hit. Oh man, I'm still in range. Okay, now I'm not. So they do have a significant armor presence here to the south. So I think what I'm actually going to do is reinforce all these units. Go ahead and move him forward in protection of Stuka. I'm not too worried about the 110 because they do have air-to-air capabilities, unlike the Stuka. And what can we do? 2 to 4. Let's do it. Oh, we knock him out. So we'll move him forward, and we have taken our first objective at Cambrai. Alright. I think that's it. So they have a lot of armor, actually. I probably actually should have taken some more armor. I was actually more worried about armor through this area, because this is where the main actual armored counterattack came, but they actually have a lot to the south here. I don't know how historically accurate that is, because, like I said, I feel like everything I've read, most of the armor counterattacks came, well, the big one came at Eris, and then the following day at Cambrai. I don't remember there being a big armored counterattack at near Amiens, but I could be wrong. I might have to. I'll research it after this episode and see. Seeing as this episode's probably going to go long again and probably going to have to be broken up into two parts. Alright, so I talked about at the beginning a sort of a big what if scenario that happened. So I mentioned how the German advance constantly got halted. Okay, so here we go. Here, this actually is a well, a little bit. Okay, I thought there would be more to that than that, but apparently not. Let me get all my armor forward. Ah. Oh, okay, we got him surrendered. That was simple enough. So there was a big, sorry, where was I? I kind of got distracted. So there was a big push after the Sedan, and you know, the idea of Blitzkrieg was that they really overwhelmed themselves with combined arms to really surround the British and French forces and just, like I said, overwhelm them. Now that didn't really happen at Sedan. It really was more of a slow burn as they moved through the Ardennes. It really wasn't this big, huge push that you really hear about. That didn't actually happen to after Sedan. And that's when you hear these stories about the German military being able to cover 60 kilometers a day. Now, in Guderian's book, his pre-war book, not his post-war novel, Panzer, but in his pre-war book, he talks about how he believed that with the right ground and the right resources and the right application of the armored divisions, they would actually be able to cover, I think it was like 20 miles an hour or 20 kilometers an hour. Now that or 16 if the at best or at worst. Obviously, that didn't quite happen, uh, but still, 60 kilometers a day was still at the time unheard of. Now, this, as I said before at the beginning of the episode, sort of scared German high command because they believed that multiple times that they were walking into traps, that the they were sort of playing into their hands, so to speak, and they were about to walk in. So that first happened, like I said, I believe it was the 15th uh, of May. At the first time they sort of got told to halt. This actually really upset Guderian to the point where there's been reports. I don't know if they're confirmed reports that he actually threatened to resign because of it, but whether he did or didn't, it was known that he was very upset by this to the point where he, in order to sort of gain a loophole, so to speak, against these orders, he ordered reconnaissance in force, which allowed him to essentially bypass these orders and, like I said, just do recons as they move forward. Now, eventually, these orders would stop, and they were ordered to proceed again. And they made up most of the ground that they would have covered anyway, as they started going through these Low Countries areas. But there was, and as I'm just about to talk about it now, as the Seventh Army approached Arras, a large combined British and French counterattack happened. Uh, it was a armored unit that was, I believe, originally in the Belgium area, but they were transferred down and then counterattacked once they arrived. Uh, this this sort of it caught Rommel and the Seventh Army off guard to the point where this is sort of the famous time where you hear this report that Rommel ordered the sort of fire everything order, and it's the first time where you hear these reports of the 88mm flat gun being used against armor. That's sort of where this idea sort of comes from, or not idea, but it's sort of, that is the historic moment where it was sort of the first ever time it was used. Now, that can be debatable in of itself because there's been reports that the German army was already testing it. That we know that they were issued armor-piercing rounds for. They were originally issued armor-piercing rounds for use against the Maginot Line, because they believed that they would have to then aim these high-powered guns downwards and attack the Maginot defenses, these, the bunkered areas around these lines. Now, that never really came to pass so much. There was the Army Group C that sort of stationed themselves along the Maginot Line, and they sort of used, had these small skirmishes, but never really in force, at least not until these northern areas were captured and after everything that happened at Dunkirk. The British and French counterattacked at Arras. Now, the big controversial part of this was Rommel's role in this. Now, Rommel originally, I'm going to go ahead and move these guys forward. Rommel originally reported that he was under attack by something like 5 divisions, which would have been a lot of tanks. That would have been hundreds of tanks. Now, this wasn't true, obviously. Rommel was not under attack by 5 divisions of armor. It was roughly 70 tanks altogether, and most of these were lighter tanks. The Matilda 1s, not even necessarily the Matilda 2s that they show here, and some of the Sumas were heavier tanks, but they really didn't have any problem with this. It was a massive failure of a counterattack. I believe the British and French combined lost about 50 tanks, all said and done. But specifically, the thing that hurt the assault was that And this assault happened, I believe it was early on the 21st, but the big key part that really hurt was Rommel reporting that he was under heavy attack. Now this, as we already said, that the High Command was already worried that that the German military was walking into a trap. We've already established that. Now, so it didn't take much for High Command to get worried that this was the counterattack that they were worried about. So it didn't take long for another halt order to be issued. Because of Rommel's reporting on the issue. As I said, keep saying, he reported hundreds of tanks when there really was not quite that many around at the time of the attack. Nowhere near that many, actually. Oh, you know what? He can actually attack that fighter. I just realized that fighter finally moved forward. Now, like I said, this is significant because we get another halt order. And the reason why that's significant is because by the time Eris happened, so I'm actually sort of farther ahead than the Germans would have been, Guderian would have already been taking Abbeville, and on the 21st he would have been moving on Boulogne and Calais, and then eventually on to Dunkirk. I believe it was the 10th Army that was heading towards Dunkirk, the 2nd that was heading towards Calais, don't quote me on that, and I believe the 1st was heading towards Boulogne. And sorry, the Panzer's divisions, not armies. And so they were yet again told to halt because they German High Command, who was already antsy about this this foreseen counterattack that they believed was already coming, now believed that it was coming. That these reports by not Guderian, Rommel were in fact the reports that they had been hearing about. They were now under the massive counterattack that they were worried about. So yet again, on the 21st, we get a halt order. And like I said, this is very significant because what was going to happen on the 21st? As we started off on the 21st, Guderian was making big headway as he moved through the Low Countries. Like I said, about 60 miles a day. And as you can see on this map, well, let's sort of see the computer's turn, I guess. Oh man, he just wrecked that artillery gun. But if we look at the map, and we'll look at it in a minute, like I said, Guderian had just taken Abbeville and was moving north on Boulogne. There's not that much distance between the two, and there's not that much distance between Boulogne and Calais. It's very believable that on the 21st, which was Guderian's plan, was to take Calais and Boulogne and possibly even Dunkirk on the 21st, all while Rommel was being attacked near Arras, and then on the 22nd he would also be attacked at Cambrai. And I can also not even move my Air Force at the moment because it is raining. I force him back, but I'm probably not going to do anything. Hit him on the river hex while I can. So on the 21st, he gets told to halt yet again, as he's just short distance away from these three objectives. Now, why is that a big deal? Because late on the 21st, early in the morning on the 22nd, the British would reinforce the ports of Calais and Dunkirk, which had Guderian not had to stop and for this yet again halt order that he received, it is very possible that Guderian may have been able to take these towns well before. I should have probably hit him with artillery first. Well before the British were able to reinforce these positions. This is important because had they not reinforced Calais and Dunkirk, uh, Guderian would have had a much simpler time taking these towns, specifically Dunkirk. 'Cause we all know what happened at Dunkirk. If you don't, it's the city where over 300,000 Allied troops were rescued as they retreated from this pocket that was forming in northern France and Belgium. So we see this, and like I said, the the French are falling apart. British are falling apart. Guderian has these opportunities to sweep in behind them before the main armies retreat to Dunkirk. And what happens? There is a massive halt order. Again, because of what happened at Arras. So, with all this being said, what can we surmise from that? Now, it's a what-if scenario, so this really, the options are well in the air. You can surmise a lot from it. Now, Guderian may not have reached Calais. He may not have reached Dunkirk. All that could have been for naught. The British may have been able to reinforce. We don't know this. But what we do know is Guderian meant to take these cities on the 21st. Had he been able to do this, we could have seen a completely different way the war played out. Now, you could say that about a lot of scenarios that happened throughout the war. I realize that. There's a lot of different ways the war could have turned out. We'll never really know. But I'm of the opinion that had he done that, the British would have voted to end the war with Germany. Why do I say that? Well, because that was actually happening at the time. The same week that all this is happening, the British are actually voting in Parliament to end the war effort against Germany. This was headed by Neville Chamberlain against Winston Churchill, who disagreed strongly, obviously. He believed that the war effort needed to go on, but it was up for a vote. And it was not. And had Guderian taken Dunkirk and Calais the day on the 21st when he wanted to, before the British had actually landed reserves to help out with the invasion, or the retreat, not the invasion, we may have seen an opportunity in which Chamberlain would have got his way, and they would have voted for a halt to the war effort with Germany. That could have led to a lot of different scenarios in of itself, but I think that is the most important one. Because if we go way back to the beginning, all the way to when Germany decided to go to war with Poland, Germany did not believe, or Hitler did not believe, that it would involve the major powers. Because he was able to take Czechoslovakia without a fight. He was able to send forces into the Rhineland without a fight. He kept challenging the British throughout this whole process without a fight. And so when it came to this moment in time, he believed that he would get the same thing, that he would go unchallenged in Poland. This is significant because, as I've mentioned before during earlier episodes, Germany was not ready at the time to fight a major, not even one, but multiple major powers. It just was not in the cards for Germany at that time. As you can see, we finally broke through that British counterattack. It was going to take much more resources than Germany had at the time. And if Britain had laxed on their war efforts against Germany at that time, Germany would have been able to build up forces. And this could have spelled a lot of changes in the war. This could have meant that Operation Sea Lion may have gone through, with Germany able to spend more time building up their forces, Germany being able to spend more time, specifically their Navy and their Air Force, because one thing that's not talked about a lot is just how much of the Luftwaffe was lost during the invasion of France. Yes, they did. They struck a lot of casualties in of themselves, but they also lost a lot. And that's often not talked about enough, and the importance of that, because obviously what happened next was, of course, the Battle of Britain. And Germany just didn't have the Air Force to take on the British Air Force. So we saw this to great effect in that obviously Britain won the Battle of Britain. Because Germany didn't have the forces, the Air Force, to do it. Operation Sea Lion was not going to be able to go through without the complete control of the sea and the air between the British Channel. But with the time, without having to fight a war against the British in North Africa, because we can get to that next, is that the British may not have been in North Africa against the Italians. I mean, there's a lot more into that, because that goes into the colonies, the British colonies that were there. So there's a lot more to that, and that may have been what prevented, even had the 300,000 soldiers not escaped from Dunkirk, that may have been what prevented Germany or Britain from leaving the war effort. This is, like I said, this is why I like what-if scenarios, because we could talk all day about what they mean and what the different changes to the war that could have happened at these times. I don't think I want to move my bomber forward just yet. But like I said, there's so many different paths we can walk down. Without having to go to war with Britain, we could have seen a much larger scale war in Russia. I just don't know if Germany would have been able to take on Russia. Although, with being able to spare more forces to Russia, I mean, who knows? The war could have, Germany could have waited till Spain was ready. A lot of people forget about Spain. Spain was a ally of the Germans, but Spain didn't really join the war effort. Nobody wanted them to join the war effort, because they just had a civil war. They were rebuilding, but 5-6 years go by without a war. Germany, I don't know if we would have went that long without a war, even if Britain had signed an armistice, or at least a ceasefire. I don't know. I think probably Germany wouldn't have been able to get that much time anyway, but there is some sort of idea that you could say that Spain could have eventually built up and joined the war effort. I don't think so. Like I said, I think that's pushing it, but like I said, it's all very, at least to me, it's all very interesting. To you, it may be boring as anything, but to me, it's very interesting to see what could have happened, or at least to talk about what could have happened and it all spawned from one thing, and that was the counterattack at Arras. If that never happened, if Rommel hadn't declared that he was under attack by hundreds of, or 5 divisions worth of enemy tanks, so that would have, I would have to look up exactly how much a armored division would have been, but if had he not declared that he was under attack by hundreds of tanks, there's a chance that High Command wouldn't have seen it as big of a deal. There's a chance that Guderian would have never got the halt order, and there's a chance that Calais, Boulogne, and Dunkirk would have fallen on the 21st, but before British reinforcements reinforced these towns to the point where it would have been difficult for them to capture. That's also not to mention that there was another halt order on the 24th. That one wasn't at that point as big of a deal, although it could have been. We could have talked about that as well, but that's gonna be it for me rambling this episode. I think I'm gonna pause it right here, because we still got a little while left to go. We got 9 turns left to go, and I just had this feeling that there's not much left. I do see some armor up ahead, And we still have to push through here, this open ground here, but I really don't feel like that's going to be too big of a problem. I could be wrong, but we're going to check that out next episode, because we're already hitting 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep these to about 40 minutes at most, preferably 30 minutes, but I feel like a lot of these episodes are going to go longer just because of the length of time it takes. Especially as we get into the, well, we're not going to Russian front, thank God, I'm not making that mistake again, but as we get into North Africa, I'm sure it's going to follow a similar situation where the scenarios are much longer, so. But, as I said, that's it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. This is the General History signing off, and thanks, bye.